Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to another tank review. This time we are looking at the Tier 7 American tank destroyer of the non-turreted variety. This is the T25 AT. I'd usually kick these videos off with a little bit of historical background for you, but honestly I haven't been able to find out a damn thing about this machine. And so I can't tell you anything more than is mentioned in-game, which is that the T25 was developed on the basis of the T23 medium tank, but was never manufactured. Basically, this is a paper tank. It never existed, and even the T23 medium tank hasn't managed to make it into the game yet, not properly. But nonetheless, let's actually have a look at what we do find with this tank. First thing I would like to mention is that there are of course two regular Tier 7 American tank destroyers. I already have a review of the T25/2 on my channel if that's the one you're interested in. That's the machine on the turreted tank destroyer line. This is the non-turreted tank destroyer line. And this is actually the first of those machines since Tier 4 that doesn't actually have a turret. I know that seems slightly odd. Culminates in the T110E3. So let's just have a very quick look at the sort of grind you have got in store for you. Tier 1 is the T1, who cares? T3 howitzer motor carriage. Now I should say I have not played the T3 or the T56. The American tank destroyer line was rather rearranged. And the machines that I played at tiers 2 and 3 were bumped into artillery, the T18 and the T82, so I can't actually comment on these tanks myself. You then get the T40 at tier 4. I have a review of this on my channel. It's not a bad tank destroyer, good selection of guns. Doesn't have a turret, but does have a very wide gun arc. Wolverine at tier 5, personally I prefer to the T67. Does have a fully rotating turret, mobility's good enough, and the M1A2 gun is pretty decent. Jackson at tier 9, again, fully rotating turret, 90mm gun, and I prefer to the Hellcat at tier 6. I do like this machine. And then we get to the T25 AT itself. So let's just have a look and see what sort of things you may or may not already have unlocked. You won't have the top suspension, you'll have the stock suspension, but that's not the end of the world. The top engine you might already have unlocked if you have played some of the higher tier American medium tanks, or this machine's counterpart, the T25/2. You've got this 704 horsepower engine, which is a fairly significant upgrade over the stock engine. Radio, this radio gets unlocked on every American tank and its wife, so you will have this radio almost certainly already unlocked. And when we have a look at guns, your stock gun is the 90mm M3. This is the gun you were using on the Jackson, and here at tier 7 it's okay as a stock gun to do some grinding with. It's fine, you know, it's nothing to write home about, but it's good enough. Then you unlock this 90mm gun. You might already have this unlocked if you have played the T25/2. But if not, you then get this gun, and the only difference between these two guns is that your penetration goes up by 10mm. Whoop de frigging shoop. Who cares? And in a way it is slightly irritating that you have to grind through this gun with, how much experience is it? 16,300 experience and 111,900 credits for a 10mm upgrade in penetration. Oh, and to be fair, a 15mm upgrade in premium penetration. I mean, better is better, don't get me wrong, and sure, you have to unlock this gun anyway, so I would recommend it, but it's not that much of an upgrade. And then you get the top gun on this tank. Now you can go straight to unlocking the T28 without this top gun, but if you do that you're an idiot, so don't do it. This is the 105mm T5E1 gun. 6.59 rounds per minute rate of fire, 198 penetration, 320 alpha damage, that penetration goes up to 245 with APCR, 0.38 dispersion, which isn't great, and a 1.7 second aiming time, which is fairly nice. It's basically the tank destroyer version of the gun you get on the T29. Now, the reason you definitely want to make sure, or the reasons you definitely want to make sure you unlock this gun: 1, it makes the T25 AT much better. 2, you're going to have to use it on the T28 anyway, or the T28 prototype if you're planning to go down the turreted line as well. And why waste the free experience? Why not just unlock it here? Because then this is an okay grinding gun to use at tier 8 while you unlock the top 120mm gun there. So I do strongly recommend that you do unlock that gun, even though strictly speaking you don't have to. You can go straight to the T28 without it, but don't do that! That would be silly. So, with that said, what do we get with regard to the other stats on this tank? Well, we're going to talk more about the gun. Well, no, we just did talk about the gun, sorry, so we're not going to labour this point too much. Just to note that you're looking at around about 2,200 DPM with that gun, and I can't compare directly with the Jagdpanther because I have a fully spec'd out crew in it, but it's comparable with the DPM on something like the Jagdpanther. Survivability, 840 hit points, which for a tier 7 tank destroyer is there or thereabouts. Stuart Emil has 850, the Kruppstreher Waffenträger 800, 830 on the E25, 840 on the SU, you know, it goes on 820, 880, 850, 840. The only ones that really get significantly more are those very heavily armoured British assault-style tank destroyers, which have over 1,000 hit points. But apart from that, it's pretty much par for the course. Your armour is not fantastic. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but best, you've got 88mm of armour on the front. You do have sloping and good gun depression, which allows you to slope that back even further, but the armour is not fantastic. This armour is only really going to bounce lower tier light tanks, say. You do have a gun mantlet that isn't small, so you can get the odd bounce here or there, but the armour on this tank is not the sort of thing you should be relying on. Mobility, well, 704 horsepower engine when fully upgraded on a 39-ton tank gives you a... Is it going to give me the horsepower to ton ratio, or am I going to have to work it out myself? Specific power, there we go, of 18 horsepower per ton, which is really very respectable. It's sort of... It's top-end medium tank, low-end light tank sort of power to weight ratio. Combine that with a speed limit of almost 44 kilometers an hour, and this thing is actually respectably mobile with decent traverse values. This is not a slow machine. That will change when you get to tier 8, but it is not slow. Camouflage values, 19.61, just for the sake of comparison. Jagdpanther has better, but bear in mind, Jagdpanther I have got a proper crew in, so let's compare it with more something like the AT7, which doesn't have a crew in. 17.21, yeah. This is not a tiny machine, and what you find as a result... Sorry, I don't know why I said the Jagdpanthers were better. They are, of course, worse. This isn't a tiny machine, and what you find as a result is this does not have the best camouflage in class, but it's also not the worst. So, sure, why not? There or thereabouts. Base view range of 350 meters, which is not very good, but if you're willing to use binocular telescopes on this machine, you can bump that view range up and make your life a little bit easier. You can then spot a few more things, and signal range, who cares? Really, just who cares? In terms of consumables and all that jazz, into ammunition, start off there. I have 5 rounds of high explosive, 5 of APCR, and then the other 30 of armor piercing. 105mm high explosive at tier 7 isn't too bad, actually. There are situations where it's quite nice to have. And the base penetration of this gun at 198 is good enough that you don't need to dip too much into those APCR rounds. So most of the time I've found firing armor piercing is perfectly viable, and doing that, you can see I've racked up 2 marks of excellence on this machine. So yeah, that was fine. I have your standard 3 consumables. You don't really want to get shot much in this tank, so you might want to swap out something like the fire extinguisher for a case of cola. That would be an option, or maybe one of the gasolines. That's up to you. But I found the basic 3 consumables to be absolutely fine. Equipment, none of this is going to come as a massive surprise. Gun rammer, you want a gun rammer. Gun rammer is your friend. Better DPM is, well, better. And then your other 2 equipment slots, I would recommend binocular telescopes to bump up that view range. And then, depending on how you want to play the tank, either a camouflage net or improved vents. Memory serves, I used a camouflage net. I was being a bit cheap, but you could use improved vents just to give your tank an all-round buff to the crew. In terms of your crew, commander, gunner, driver, loader, what crew skills do you want? Sixth sense on your commander is the way to go. On your others, there's your standard crew skills that are always good to take, like repairs and camouflage. You're now getting tier 7, you're now getting towards the higher tier machines, and so I would say you really want to start prioritizing repairs over camouflage on your tank destroyer crews. That would be my opinion. Certainly when you get to tier 8 you want repairs, and so if this crew is likely going to be the crew that goes to the tier 8 machine, repairs is where you want to be. That's your crew skills. I mean, you can also take things like safe stowage and all that jazz. I didn't notice the ammo rack being a huge problem on this tank, so I don't think that's essential. And of course, Brothers in Arms is nice to have for your crew as well. The only other thing I should probably mention about the tank at this point is that you do get 10 degrees of gun depression, which is really, really nice to have. And although this tank isn't particularly well armoured, you can forgive it lacking a lot of that armour because you have that gun depression, and so that does mean you can play this tank not just sitting right at the back of the map, which is a good thing because the fully aimed accuracy on this gun, 0.38, that leaves a bit to be desired. So yeah, let's go and have a look at things like module locations, armour values as usual. I'll show you some gameplay, top tier and bottom tier, and then we'll round things off. Okay then, let's take a look at some of the module locations. First thing to note, it's not a massive surprise, but if you look at the tank from the front, then on the right hand side where you've got this kind of hatch section, that is where the driver lives. So bear in mind, shots there are likely going to knock him out. You've also got an ammo rack, if we look round to the side, toward the rear of the superstructure here. Not at the front of the superstructure, but toward the rear. A shot with a good angle, I guess, could probably knock your driver and your ammo rack out in one shot, which would be quite awkward. Though again, playing it, I didn't actually find the ammo rack to be a huge problem. The ammo rack does extend around the back of the superstructure and out toward the other side. You've of course got the engine and your fuel tanks towards the rear here, nothing hugely surprising. And it's a very similar story looking at the tank from the other side. Also, of course, while it's not easily highlighted here, you've got your commander's hatch on the top of the tank, and so you're going to have your commander below it as well. So your commander will be in there somewhere. So again, it may also be possible to knock out your driver and commander with a single shot, which once again would be kind of awkward. Here we are then. My apologies for not showing you the armor profile in the end of this tank. The website I usually use for that is having a bit of a senior moment with regard to the T25 AT. And with this tank, honestly, the exact armor profile isn't that important. All you need to know is that the armor isn't great. It's not the sort of thing you can rely upon, but you can get the occasional bounce here or there. So let's jump into the replays. We're going to have a top tier and a bottom tier replay as normal. And again, kicking off with the top tier replay, pretty much standard for these reviews. We're on the Siegfried line. It's an assault game and we are on the defending team. This is a patch 9.17 replay, and it's one of those that are just bugged. Go figure. I'm using binos and a camo net, as I mentioned in the garage. And I'm just taking up a position behind here to try and do a little bit of shooting, though that is with the caveat that this gun is kind of not, as I mentioned in the garage, it's not colossally accurate at longer range. Hello, Mr. IS. There we go. 338 into you. 320 alpha damage is very nice to have on a tier 7 machine, and there's the A44 as well. Yeah, very nice alpha damage to have on a tier 7 machine. Takes off big fat chunks of people's health in a suitably satisfying manner. Missed that one, unfortunately. And just using my 10 degrees of gun depression here to try and expose as little of my tank as I possibly can. Side of the turret on the KV2, and he is now down into the potential one-shot range. Ugh, that one missed. There's the accuracy or lack of on this gun for you, unfortunately. But nonetheless, T3485 manages to polish off the KV2. Hoorah! Sorry about that. Got a little bit of a frog in my throat. Jagdpanzer gets taken out by the T3485, and it's just a KV1 and an enemy T3485 that are over here. So far the scoreline is even at 2 kills apiece, which isn't too bad. Not going to get any shots on the IS or the A44, unfortunately, so seeing as I'm not doing anything, I decided to make a move, and we're doing almost 60 kilometers an hour. We're going downhill, yes, but this machine is relatively mobile. So that's not the sort of thing that should come as a massive surprise. Yes, we might just be able to find a shot. There we go. And you'll notice a glut of our team members have died. Scoreline is 2-7 now. And we did actually bounce one shot there from a T-34. So the armour isn't fantastic, but it can be useful against some of those lower tier tanks. And there's the aim time coming in. And decent soft stats on the gun. Managing to, not fully aimed, get slightly lucky, but manage to kill that IS. And 200 penetration, well, 198. Was that a little bit on the lucky side? Yes, but not too ridiculously lucky on my part. Just a little bit. To compensate, our team is wilting, of course. Now, you can't see the ammunition that I'm using in this game or anything like that, unfortunately, but I do assure you the shot on the IS was armor-piercing. I was not firing APCR or anything like that. I'm not even sure if I fired a single shot of APCR while I was using this tank, to be honest. Anyway, we did just get penetrated by that T-34, so the armor doesn't provide reliable protection against even tanks that are 2 tiers below you, but there is some protection in there to be had. KV-85 put one into the side of his turret. There's only 4 of us left at this point, which is slightly problematic. I don't really want to go over that ridge because I'm pretty sure by the time I'd managed to point my gun at the KV-85, he'd be able to point his gun at me. Artillery tries to do something about me again, but we managed to avoid it. KV-85 goes off a little bit early, and we're able to put another shot into his face. T-34 coming around the side, thinks he can have some of this, and gets lucky. Unfortunately, my shot there bounces on the side of him. Auto-aim here, we're getting surrounded, so we're just moving, kill the T-34, and then we need to turn around, most likely, to engage our next target. We know one of those KV-85s is a one-shot because we put him there. They're also capping our base. This is a bit of a nightmare game. There's the KV-85 in question, and at this point I'm just thinking, screw it, let's go for it. There's kill number 3. I'm now the last one left. And there's another KV-85, but I am trying to see if I can possibly get back to our base in order to reset. But no, they cap our base out. And there we go. That is the game, unfortunately. Nah, these things happen. So let's have a look at those post-game stats. So that ended up being second class mastery, fire for effect and bruiser, despite the fact that it was a defeat, because we managed to pick up the high caliber medal for the most damage done in the game. And thus we got heroic resistance and all of that jazz. 2,931 damage done, 3 kills, 556 base experience, that's before you add in the heroic resistance bonus. And the rest of our team was just woeful. I think it's quite telling that in that tier 7 match, the guy who came second on our team by experience was an M5A1 Stuart. I'm just going to leave that there. It's not as if anyone on the enemy team did particularly outstandingly well. They just consistently performed much better than our team did. Nonetheless, 13 shots fired, 11 hits, 11 penetrations for that damage count. Some of which was from relatively long, well, from more than 300 meters at least. Some of which was from pretty close range. And actually, despite the fact that our armor isn't fantastic, it did stuff in that game. Especially against that T-34, we managed to bounce 555 damage. Having a look at the profitability of that game, these shells are 1,000 credits every time you pull the trigger, so that is going to eat into the profitability. However, on a defeat, we still made 12,500 credits profit with a standard account, which isn't too bad. And 902 total experience plus a bit of free XP. So that was our top tier game. Let's go and have a look at our bottom tier game now. Here we go then in our tier 9 match on Himmelsdorf. Not a map that you usually associate with tank destroyers, unless it's a very heavily armoured tank destroyer, which this is not. So, dodgy map and bottom tier. Oh dear. Well, hopefully we can still do something, rather than flailing around uselessly. presumably we can still do something. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be showing you this match. Although, as ever, I try to choose matches for these reviews that are not ridiculously spectacular games. So don't expect us to go around, pick up 10 kills and carry our team like a boss or anything like that. That isn't going to happen. So, Tier 7, Tier 9 match, Himmelsdorf, what are we going to do? Well, I am not driving up onto the hill because I don't have any armor, I don't have a turret, I don't have much health. If I go up onto the hill, I think I'm probably just going to get splatted, which would be slightly sad. There's no artillery in this match, though. On Himmelsdorf, artillery doesn't have a huge role to play anyway. This is another patch 9.17 replay. So, I've gone over to this side of the map. I have absolutely no idea what that was. I think I had to go and sort something out briefly, and then when I came back, I actually accidentally hit the left mouse button or something. And so I went off unintentionally. Go figure. Now, what you can do, if you need to provide fire support, is you can come down to this position, roughly at G3. There's a corresponding one at around about D3. And you can basically shoot up onto the hill. Hello, Mr. T25. And there's a shot into him. Relatively slim shot, but we were able to make it nonetheless. Basically, from this position, you can shoot anyone deciding they want to try and make it around Castle von Himmelsdorf. And there's one into the T10 as well. Again, I'm not firing APCR ammo here, I'm just firing good old-fashioned regular armor piercing. You know, I'm not being a massive premium scrub lord. So Centurion has pushed way too far, and this is really the reason why you want to be very careful about going round the side of Castle von Himmelsdorf, because if you have people like me in a light tank or a tank destroyer on this map, they tend to go into this location and start shooting you in your side. And I'm pretty sure you don't like getting shot in the side. Hello, Mr. IS-6. Oh, we missed that one. There we go. That .38 dispersion was going to let us down at some point. Side of an Oni, we'd struggle to miss that even if we tried. KV3, T54, this is just a shooting gallery, which is always nice. KV3, there we go. There's a shot into him. And with the camo net up, none of these guys appear to have spotted me. My sixth sense hasn't gone off or anything like that. Oh, wait, never mind. Did I have sixth sense at this point, or were they blind shooting me? No, okay. Maybe I didn't have sixth sense when I played this match. There we go, there's a couple of shots to the face. They finally got sick of me shooting them in the side, which, to be fair, yeah, that's fair enough. I can't really criticise too much. So the value of sixth sense comes through there, and the fact that I didn't have it bites me on the bottom a little bit. But nonetheless, we managed to put in a good amount of damage onto, what was it? There was a KV3, IS-6, Centurion 7/1, an Oni, and a T10. Most of those tanks were a higher tier than us, so that is definitely very valuable damage to have on them. Hello, Mr. T32. No one appears to be paying us any attention anymore. Now, unfortunately, these guys have kind of pushed up a little bit far. Oh, then again, apparently the IS-3 thinks he's hard enough. No, maybe not. These guys have pushed up far enough that getting shots on them now is quite difficult, and our Jagdtiger has decided that what he really needs to do with his time is spam the map endlessly. Because, I don't know, he wants us to cap or something? I'm not really sure what he's getting at. There we go. Now, I am kind of running out of things to shoot here. I'm going to need to relocate soon-ish, but I did want to try and polish off that IS-3. So I thought it was worth attempting to do that, and I don't want to just get shot in the face by that LTTB, as he would just kill me with his one shot. I am on quite low health now. T54, can I do something about him before the Skoda does? Damn it, that shot missed. And our Skoda dies. There's an STRV, but unfortunately I think he's going to get himself safe before I reload. I take a shot, but that was a pretty terrible shot to take. And our Jagdtiger is still spamming the map like an utter boss. I think he wants us to move up and support someone, and cap or die, really? Why? We have the numerical advantage. I don't know. At this stage, however, I am on very, very low health, and I am pondering what is the most useful thing that I can do. If I just charge out anywhere, there's a very good chance that I'm just going to die. So I don't want to do that. What I will, however, do is sit in the cap circle. Now, what I'm not actually necessarily intending to cap here, but what my thought process was, okay, I'm in the cap circle, which means the bad guys have to come to us, or we are going to win. That means I can get an ambush shot off on someone, which at least means I can get some damage into them before I die. And I may even not die. I might just be able to kill them. And our Jagdpanther 2 seems convinced that this is a loss at this point. So, yeah. And what do they have on the enemy team remaining? Well, an Oni, he's never going to get to the cap circle in time. The other three, however, could. And that T10 is certainly ploughing forwards. But our team seems to have decided, screw this, we're just going to sit in the capture circle. Which is a bit unusual, but there we go. But if that's what happens, I'm okay with that. That secures the win, and there we go. Victory. That was a bit that I could do at the end of the game that was useful to try and help our team win. So there we go. I did it, and we won. Let's have a look at the stats. In the end, that was enough for first class mastery and the fire for effect ribbon. Finished top of our team, 2,537 damage done against, well, there was one shot into the Oni and one shot into the KV3, which are an equal tier to us. The T32 and the IS3 are both one tier higher, and the T54 Centurion and T10 are 2 tiers higher. So we were mainly shooting higher tier tanks there, which was nice. 2 kills, 1,016 base experience, despite the fact that most of that damage was at pretty long range. 16 shots fired, 10 hits, 9 penetrations. There's that kind of dubious accuracy for you. 2,537 damage, of course. 2 hits, 2 penetrations. The armor, it does nothing. Enemy vehicles damage, 7. Destroyed, 2. 478 assistance damage, 26 base defense points. Now, we missed some of our shots that game, so despite the fact that that was a win, we only made 6,500 credit profit. But, these things happen. And, of course, we took some damage, so that factored in as well. But all in all, that ended up being a pretty respectable game. Bottom tier in the T25 AT. So, let's go and round things off in How did I find this tank overall, then? Well, let's go and have a quick look at my stats, just before I mention anything. I should say, actually, I had some terrible teams when I was playing this machine, hence the 46% win rate, despite having 2 marks of excellence and all that stuff. 119 games played, god-awful win rate, 2.15 damage ratio, 2.32 destruction ratio, 1,415 average damage per battle, none too shabby. Maximum damage, 3,500, maximum number of kills, 6, yeah, marks of excellence, what am I sitting at? 87.12%. Okay, fair enough. Overall, I actually found this tank... When I first started playing it, I did not like it. But actually, it grew on me. Not enough for me to keep it. There are other tier 7s I would rather play. The T29, the Panther, the Comet. But it was actually kind of fun. For the second half of the grind, even though the teams were god-awful. So, yeah, if you're looking for a tier 7 tank destroyer that you don't just have to camp the red line in, and that has a slightly punchier gun than the T25/2 or the Challenger, then the T25 AT is actually quite an interesting option. Now, you don't have a fully rotating turret. That is always going to be a massive disadvantage on these sorts of tanks. But it's not such a cripplingly horrendous disadvantage that you can't do well in this machine. By the time you get to some of the higher tiers, the lack of turret is probably it really is an issue. But on this tank, it's fine. This is a pretty decent tier 7 tank destroyer. It's not the best tier 7 machine out there, but for a tier 7 tank destroyer, it is one of the better ones. So in that sense, I guess I do kind of recommend it. It's certainly not a massively painful experience, or not in my opinion. Anyway, there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed that review of this machine, possibly found it vaguely informative. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other reviews or videos, and or subscribe to my channel. And I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.